Singapore, the 1990s. A young newspaper reporter is interviewing Robert Kiyosaki, by now a famous author, and she has a confession. Someday, she tells him, "I'd like to be a best-selling author like you." And she means it. Her writing is good. He's read it, and he tells her so. She has the degree, a master's in English literature. She has the talent. Something just isn't happening. So he gives her his honest advice. There's school here in Singapore that trains people to sell. Take the course. She freezes. Are you saying I should go to school to learn to be a salesperson? A professional? A trained writer? Sell? She starts packing her briefcase. And Kiyosaki picks up her notepad and points at what she wrote at the top. Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author. Best-selling, he says quietly. Not best writing. I'm a terrible writer. You're a great writer. I went to sales school. Put the two together, and you get both. She walked out into the humid morning, furious. And her fury is this episode, because the world is full of brilliant, talented, educated people who stay broke. And Kiyosaki's explanation is one line long. Often, it's not the smart who get ahead. It's the bold. Remember the lead nickels? 2 9-year-olds melting toothpaste tubes in a driveway, and a father explaining what counterfeiting means. Rich Dad never forgot it. Years later, he told the boys, "That day, you were closer to the secret of money than most adults ever get." Wrong method. Right instinct. Because here is Rich Dad's strangest lesson. Lesson 5. The rich don't find money lying around, and they don't earn most of it an hour at a time. The rich invent money. Money, he'd say, isn't a thing at all. It's an agreement between people. And new agreements can be created by anyone who trains the most powerful asset there is, the one between your ears. What does that training look like in practice? Kiyosaki's word for it is options. When something goes wrong, a deal falls through. The money isn't there. The bank says no. The average person knows exactly one move. Work harder, save, and wait. The trained mind asks a different question. How many ways can I think of through this? If you're waiting for conditions to be perfect before you act, he says, you're like a driver waiting for every traffic light to be green for 5 miles before starting the trip. And opportunities, Rich Dad insisted, aren't rare. They're just invisible, because great opportunities are not seen with your eyes. They're seen with your mind. Here's what inventing money looks like with real numbers. Kiyosaki's own story, from the early 1990s, when the Phoenix economy was on its knees and everyone else was hiding. Houses that had been worth $75,000 were going begging. And down at the courthouse, where foreclosed homes were auctioned, the same house could sometimes be had for $20,000. Kiyosaki borrowed $2,000 from a friend for the deposit. Then he ran a simple ad. House worth $75,000, yours for $60,000, no money down. The phone rang off the hook. The house sold in minutes, with Kiyosaki himself carrying the buyer's loan. The way he tells it, everyone left happy. The friend repaid with a bonus, the buyer with a bargain, and Kiyosaki holding an IOU that would pay him interest, month after month, for 30 years. Total working time, about 5 hours. Nothing was built. Nothing was manufactured. He saw a gap between two prices that everyone else was too frightened to look at, and drew a brand new asset into his column. Out of agreement, nerve, and a $2,000 loan. That's the boldness the title of this episode is about. And one honest note here, because this is the corner of the book where people get burned. From a distance, bold and reckless look identical. Kiyosaki's own rules are the part the imitators skip. Start small, know the numbers cold, and never confuse a deal you understand with a gamble you're preying on. It's not gambling if you know what you're doing, he writes. It's gambling if you're throwing money into a deal and praying. His friend with the spooky house understood. Everyone laughed when he bought the ugliest, creepiest house on the block, until it turned out he hadn't bought a house at all. He checked the records. The house came with 4 extra building lots nobody had noticed. He tore the house down, sold the land to a builder for 3 times what he paid. Seeing with the mind, not the eyes. So boldness can invent money. But boldness built on what? That's lesson 6. And it explains the strangest resume in this book, Kiyosaki's own. In 1969, he graduated and landed a job his educated dad was proud of, sailing oil tankers for Standard Oil. Good pay, 5 months vacation a year, a career ladder waiting. He quit within a year to join the Marines and fly helicopters. His educated dad was devastated. Rich dad congratulated him. Back from Vietnam, he quit again and took a job selling copiers at Xerox. Not for the paycheck and not because it was comfortable, because he was painfully shy, terrified of rejection, and Xerox happened to run one of the best sales training programs in America. He knocked on strangers' doors until the fear wore out. Then he moved on. See the pattern. Every job was chosen for the skill, not the salary. Ships taught him international trade. The Marines taught him to lead people. Xerox taught him to sell. His educated dad believed what schools teach: specialize, go deep, climb one ladder. Rich dad's advice was the opposite. Know a little about a lot and pick your next job for what it teaches, not what it pays. Because here's the phrase Kiyosaki says explains half the talented struggling people you know. A consultant friend gave it to him. Most of them are one skill away from great wealth. The gifted writer who can't sell. The brilliant artist Kiyosaki knew who blew a $35,000 inheritance on one glossy magazine ad because he'd mastered his craft and never learned a thing about business. McDonald's, Kiyosaki likes to point out, does not make the world's best hamburger. Almost anyone can cook a better one. McDonald's is simply the best on earth at selling and delivering an average one. The world pays for the whole system, not the best ingredient. Talent is the ingredient. It's almost never the missing piece. Which brings us back to the reporter in Singapore, still furious in the humid morning air. Notice what was actually asked of her. Not to abandon her novel. Not to become someone else. One course, one skill bolted onto a decade of talent. And by Kiyosaki's arithmetic, great writer plus can sell equals the thing she said she wanted more than anything. The price wasn't money. The price was her pride. She would have had to sit, a master of literature, in a classroom she considered beneath her. She wouldn't pay it. Most people won't, and that's the real cliffhanger of this book. Because by now the method is sitting in plain sight. Buy assets. Mind your own business. Train your mind. Learn to sell. Start small. Be bold. None of it requires genius. And Kiyosaki insists none of it is complicated. So the last question is the one this whole series has been circling. If it's this learnable, why isn't everyone rich? Rich Dad had an answer. 5 things stand between people and the life they say they want, and not one of them is in your bank account. They're all in you. And the first one, you've already met. It was there in episode 1 at a picnic table in Hawaii, melting 2 ice cream bars. Next time, the 5 obstacles.